Innovation Unplugged from the Alabama Community College System's Innovation Center takes you inside Alabama's workforce development. Join us for enlightening conversations with community leaders and industry experts showcasing experiences, addressing key issues, and celebrating successes in the workforce initiatives across the state. All right, welcome back to Innovation Unplugged. I'm Houston Blackwood. I'm the Workforce Director for the ACCS Innovation Center. And this is a new episode of Innovation Unplugged. And today I have with Brandi Merrill, Director of Curriculum Design. And we have a very special guest today, Paige Hutto from the Alabama Chamber Association. How are you, Paige?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're good. I'm glad that you came on. Of course, the audience does not know that I got to attend the spring conference for the Alabama Chambers over at the Shoals Marriott. What a beautiful place. What a beautiful conference. And there was a good energy there. I'm not in your world, but I know that those folks have to be people all the time. And so it was fun to be around them and see what they do. So we appreciate that invite, and we wanted to extend the same courtesy to you to tell our audience what you do and how all the cool things you guys are doing for the state. So why don't you give us a little background about Paige Hutto and where you came from and how you got here, and then we've got some relatively unscripted questions to follow up with.
All right. Well, so I am a Wiregrass native, born and raised in Eufaula. So, but then became an expatriate for about 20 years, lived in Florida, lived in Georgia for, like I said, about 20 years, but moved back to Alabama in 2020. I was a COVID bride and a COVID move.
Oh my goodness.
Back to my home state. Lots of big changes in that year, good and bad, right?
Oh, I bet.
But I was one of those people that graduated college, went to Troy State, kind of dates me because I still call it Troy State. Went to Troy, graduated, and still didn't know what I wanted to do in life, but got an opportunity to move back to my hometown and work at the chamber there. And so that's kind of what kicked off this adventure. I'm one of those rare birds that's been kind of in the same industry my whole career, in or around operating within chambers. Minus 5 years when I went fishing with ESPN Outdoors. But not actually fishing, but working for the company. But yeah, I love what I do. I'm like everybody else. Nobody goes to college to be a chamber professional, but I fell in love with it and just love working now. I have the best job in the world because I get to work with all of our local chambers across the state in Con Ed, advocacy, professional development, and just trying to make them the best that they can be. So that's me. And we live in Wetumpka now, work in Montgomery when I'm not on the road.
When I'm not on the road. Well, we could tell that story.
True.
Gosh.
Yeah.
So they gave us...
I think I live in my car more than anywhere, but...
Yeah, people always say, where's your office? In the driver's seat of that Escape now, yeah.
Some weeks, that's for sure.
Yeah. So back up. We all grew up in music as a big part of our lives, right? So how do you feel about that Alan Jackson song, Way Down Yonder on the Chattahoochee? Does it drive you crazy, or is it part of your soul?
It's just that muddy Chattahoochee water kind of gets in your blood, and it draws you back home.
Yeah.
I grew up a big Alan Jackson fan, but I will tell you, you mentioned music. Atlanta Rhythm Section. Yes, I'm dating myself, but maybe you've heard of them.
I have.
Their last studio album was called Eufaula. And there is a song on there, if you can find it, it's probably on Spotify, called Dreamy Alabama. And it's just one of my favorites.
Huh. Okay.
A little partial to it. So.
Wow. Eufaula is such a pretty city. I was just there a couple of weeks ago, and, all the old homes and everything, it's just absolutely beautiful. It's a great spot to visit. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Alabama's got some beautiful hidden gems all over the state.
Absolutely.
We have more water, navigable water, than any other state in the country.
I didn't know that, but that doesn't surprise me.
No, it's a good selling point. If I were the chamber queen, I would tell people that.
Yeah.
Speaking of chamber queen,
You could be chamber king.
Oh God. Okay, so we'll change to this subject. So tell me, I would be willing to bet that your day to day is probably different every day.
Yeah.
Like you don't do the same thing every day. So kind of give us your typical, week maybe, or things that you kind of dabble in or go and do. You mentioned being on the road and you're kind of in a central location like I am. And so just tell us a little bit about what, being involved with the chamber is like and what you do.
Great question, because it's actually one of the hardest things to explain. I think I have two amazing bonus sons, and they still don't know what I do. And my husband tries every day. But the beauty and the challenge with chamber work is that there is no day that's the same, and there's no chamber that's the same.
Yeah.
So a lot of our chambers kind of serve as that gap filler in their communities. Some are very focused on being member development and business development, and they're strictly member focused. And then we have chambers that are chamber and tourism, and some that are chamber tourism and economic development. Some are, and my job kind of revolves around what they're doing. So I do a lot of Zoom. Because it's a pretty big state, and gas is almost $4. So if I can stay in Montgomery and Zoom, but a lot of times what I do is we do 2 conferences a year, so I'm a meeting planner for those. Everything from the food we're going to serve to the speakers we're going to have, locations. We're getting ready to plan for our 25, 26, 27 conferences.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of the meeting planner side. We're a staff of 2. So we do everything from financial to marketing and social media. But I also, and the favorite part of my job that I get to do is kind of one-on-one visits with our chamber execs and professionals, helping them. I look at bylaws a lot of organizational development type things. I do a lot of board retreats, board orientations, because governance is such a huge part of any nonprofit world. So it's a little bit of everything. I kind of jokingly, when I moved back to Alabama, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought, now's a great chance to take a different route.
Yeah.
And I joked because I was like, nobody knows what to do with a washed up chamber exec, because they're like, can you do communications? Sure. Can you do finance? Sure. Can you, we've touched it all. So
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I bet that makes for the most exciting time, because then nothing ever is the same, and then that just gives you the opportunity to just every day looks different and it never gets stale. That's really cool. That's a cool
you never
job.
know what's going to walk in the door behind you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the truth.
That's awesome.
Yeah. How often are you, and you don't have to answer this, you can say no, but how often are you the peacemaker, or if it's not peacemaker, then just the communication guru for a small town where you have chamber, mayor, city council, whatever other people, and they all, especially in small towns, they all have these different opinions about what's going to happen.
So, in all transparency, 60% of my job is therapist.
Yeah.
And I enjoy that part. One of the beauties of working at the state level is I'm out of local politics.
Yeah.
But I can empathize with what they're going through, having, worked at the local level for 20 years. So, there's a little bit of comfort in when I can tell somebody, you're not the first to have to go through this, but we play peacemaker. I try not to get involved, but just more of a sounding board, more of a, okay, let me put you in touch. We're connectors. That's a huge part of what we do, because again, everybody likes to think their town is very special and unique, and it is. And we have lots of great special things about communities across our state, but politics can be the same in a lot of places. You change the name, but the character stays the same. And I'll say, hey, call so-and-so over in Demopolis. No offense, Monica. She hasn't called me, but she's gone through something really similar, know? So just that being able to connect people, that's a huge part of it.
We do a lot of that too.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things. Just this morning we were going over our CDO reshoot. We filmed it and made it 2 years ago. Now we're going back and fixing a mistake that we made then by not including the colleges, and it hurt their feelings and made them mad. And so now we're going back, and they are the queen of the ball. They're going to be in it, and they're actually driving some of the content. But going back and connecting our new team members to the old, the oldest colleges, been doing CDO forever. So just that communication, that's a big deal.
Yeah. And you mentioned, I'm sure relationships are huge, because you talked about being, almost like a therapist. I'm assuming that that's also kind of a fun role when people have the ability to kind of tap into your wisdom, about all sorts of things and all types of things. So that's a cool aspect of that role too, I'm sure.
Yeah. Matt, jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah. Yeah. And I saw that firsthand. So the last 2 years, I was on the Hartselle Chamber where I live, and we had two great presidents, Missy Evans and now Jasmine Sandifer. And so they flip-flopped right in the middle of my 2 years. So I saw two different styles, and you came and did our board retreat the first year I was on there. It was a lot of fun. All those different personalities. You have preachers and bankers and businessmen and manufacturing guys and then school people. So that's a lot of people to manage as a chamber president. So
yeah, it definitely is. And anybody that works in a nonprofit sector with a board and as a chair, the beauty is you get a new boss every year. The challenge is you get a new boss every year.
Yeah.
And that can be, some people thrive in that. I particularly enjoyed the different personalities, but part of what we try to do though is find, and you're right, Houston, there's different personalities and different agendas. And I don't mean agenda in a bad way, but people's passions are different, and what chambers often try to do is find that commonality. Okay, we don't agree here, but we do agree here. And this is where we can focus and help, harness all of that together. So I think chambers do that exceptionally well. The very successful ones do.
Would you say a common theme amongst all of those chambers, and whether it's small towns or big cities or whatever, is the need for skilled workers?
100%. It's funny, when I was thinking about today, my last chamber that I served was in North Georgia, and I can't remember if it was 2018 or 2019. I think it was 2019. Our technical college, which Georgia has technical college system, sister to our community college system. Yeah. The president of the community college or technical college came and said, we want to do a workforce study. And I really think that was kind of the first time I stepped back and said, that I think was that first time that it started, and that conversation has just wrapped up. That it's the one commonality. I mean, I think, I talked about all those different personalities. It's the one common thing that's connecting everybody right now.
Oh, I bet. You mentioned first time. So I'm going to poke just a little bit and ask, when was the first time you heard about the Innovation Center and anything about what we did?
So Keith Phillips, Keith and I, our paths crossed sort of back 20 something years ago when I was in Eufaula. I was leaving as he was coming in at one of the local banks. And so probably late 2020, early 21, we reconnected at a Alabama Workforce Commission meeting maybe. And that's when we kind of started talking. He was my entry back into, the community college system. And I think just over time, he has started introducing me to, different activities. And I know the Innovation Center was part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen, from your chamber connections and your contacts, have you seen them promoting much of the Skills for Success that the local community college is doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Every chamber, we have 110 roughly chambers across the state, in varying in size from Huntsville, Mobile, Montgomery, Birmingham to, our very small rural. And I think that most of them, and if they don't, that's part of the partnership that we have at the state level with you guys. If they don't already have that partnership with their local community college, every community is served by one, right?
Absolutely.
If we're trying to be that connector at the state level. So I know that several are already in those communications. We've had multiple chambers over the last, I'd say 6 to 9 months, have actually added staff around workforce development.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so I see, again, it's just, I won't say we're at the infancy, but we're definitely, on the ramping up side of things.
We feel that way too. So you feel like you're seeing a shift because of that driving need. Yeah, we do too.
Yeah, many of our colleges have added staff members really just to run our program, because it's a lot of interest and there's a process to do it. But one of the questions we've always had, and I know that Kayla has talked to you about this, and we've talked to our economic developer in the system office. What's the best way for us to help the college, the local community college, connect to their local chamber? If they're not already, or if they're connected, but there's just not a seamless promotion or awareness of what the college is really doing, what's the best way for us to connect those two and push out all the kinks?
Well, I think it's just like was mentioned before. This is a relationship business. It really is. We're in the people business, and people do business with people they know, trust, and like. And so our chambers have our chamber staff and volunteers, but particularly the staff and professionals that work. Whoever is working the workforce development, economic development, at the community college level, pick up the phone, walk in the door. But I'd say it's two-way, because I would give the same advice to our chamber professionals. Hey, if you're not walking into your community college and asking, who do I need to talk to? Shame on you. So I think it's just show up. Don't hide behind email. And I'm guilty of it. That's something I have to tell myself all the time of, let me just drop them a really quick email. Then it's out of my brain and done. But how many emails do we get a day, right?
Too many.
And I try to keep on top of them. But again, it goes back to those relationships. So, just call and say, hey, can we meet for coffee? Or let me tell you about these great things we're doing. And the other thing that I would say is, particularly in the more rural and even our mid-size communities, there may be a staff of 3.
Yeah.
There are a lot of chambers that operate with a staff of 1 or 1.5. So they're doing everything from, cleaning the kitchen up to setting up for an event to, going to a city council meeting. Go in, tell them how you can help them, tell them how, what this means for the business, make it turnkey. So I think that's, here's a way to connect. I think we're all guilty of, and I talk about this at the chamber level too. We try to sell them everything but the kitchen sink and the kitchen sink.
Yeah.
Be very strategic about this is what's happening in our community. This is who we can connect to. This is a business that's actually using it. Here's everything you need to help us.
Yeah.
So,
give them the need
long
to know.
answer to a really easy question.
No, that was gold. I mean, that's crucial. I think, pointing out kind of the obvious that we all tend to kind of rely on email and, that mode of communication, but that there's something genuine and something special about walking in and having a face-to-face. I mean, we know that because, and you know that because you just said it. But, that really can be a struggle because you get caught up in the busyness of the day-to-day, wanting to do certain things. And that does take time, but relationships do take time, So that's a great point. It's a great point.
Yeah, we struggle with that too. We used to have a lot of time face-to-face, the core of the Innovation Center. And then we got so busy, we hit a kind of a wall where we were not in sync. And so we created this just catch-up time, really, where we just get on the Zoom or get in person, and we don't talk shop. We talk each other.
Other things,
just to make sure that we keep that core bundle tight.
And you know what's interesting? I know people have a hard time believing this, but I'm 100% off the chart introvert. Off the chart.
Okay. Okay.
I know people, but I'm a Gen X that I'm not good on the phone for whatever reason. I'm like, oh, text me, whatever, just don't call like that, whatever. But I do love Zoom, and I know that's crazy, but it does make it more personal, even if you literally can't see somebody face to face. And I try to do that with my chambers now. If somebody say, hey, can you call me? I'm like, hey, let's take 15 minutes. Let's jump on Zoom because I can see, face.
Yeah. You know what drives me crazy? And I'm not going to call anything out, but you jump on a Zoom and nobody puts their cameras on. So if you're going to this world of let's have a meeting and let's look at each other and talk about things, otherwise, why not just have a group chat on the phone? What's the point of doing the Zoom? But, sometimes we'll walk into situations where it's like a whole swath of people and nobody has their cameras on, and I get it from time to time, we all have to jump off a camera or something, but I think that's a unique perspective, that communication can happen in a lot of different ways. And I think now, I was thinking back to your comment about you really are an introvert. I don't know if you've seen this go around social media, but the introvert extrovert person, do you know what I'm talking about? Have you seen it? That is, and people are like, that is me, that is totally me. And that you can function all day long and give 110%, but boy, when it's time to shut it off, you're like, okay, I'm done. I'm exhausted.
Done.
That's the introvert extrovert person.
I worked for Morgan County Schools. The superintendent was like the most outgoing person. If you just glanced at him, but if you knew him, you knew that it was exhausting to him. And so we talked a lot about that self-care and that recharge. Yeah. And knowing what all the things you mentioned about the chambers and being small staff and having to just mentally shift gears, what do you tell your chamber presidents and CEOs and yourself about recharging, about how to take that time to just shut it down, rebalance, and then move forward?
I this is one of those where I'm not the person to give this advice because I can't take my own advice. But I will say what's interesting is it almost every conference we have now, we try to have a speaker that can touch on balance, understanding boundaries. The whole workplace has changed. We were all born and raised into a work cycle that was 40 hours a week. Our laws are based on it. 8-hour days, you have a 1-hour lunch, all of those things. And honestly, I just think the workplace in so many arenas is just changing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And those boundaries are less and less. And so, but I think that also creates that ancillary issue of, I thrive, at this time of the day from 7 to 9 a.m. I can get 1,000 things done. I work with a young lady who her peak is 9 o'clock at night to midnight.
Yeah.
So it's just finding what works for you, but respecting other people's. Like, I'm not going to call her at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm tell her, don't call me at 10 o'clock at night. But, and now if you use Outlook, they have this great, do you want to send this email during normal business hours? Do that because, if people are so accustomed to immediate response, and we are as a society, they haven't returned my email in the last, and I sent it 3 hours ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's particularly hard in local, for chambers. I know a lot of community college administration is probably the same. It's a very public facing job.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can't go to the grocery store without somebody stopping you. You can't go out to eat without somebody coming by, well-intended. It's just very public facing. So you just have to, this is terrible, but when I worked at the local level, sometimes I would grocery shop in another town just so I could do it in peace.
Have some peace. Yeah.
My dad, my dad had a package store when I was a kid, and everywhere we go, he'd see, "Hey, Bob." I'm like, "How do you know him?" "Oh, from the store." I'm like, "Well, these people drink a lot," but it was everywhere. And then I was a teacher in a small town, and every time we went out to eat, my wife was like, "Do you have to talk to every?" I was like, "Well, what do you do?
Yeah,
you can't be rude to them." It was a lot of fun, though.
Well, that just means you've made connections and relationships, and while that's the bonus, of that you've done a job and you've done it really well. Like you say, you want to be able to shut that off sometimes and just pick out the bread you want in the bread aisle, and so that makes it tough. Yeah, absolutely.
So, what's your go-to to recharge when you've answered all the emails and you've checked all the boxes and it's time for Paige to unwind? What's your go-to?
I'll also caveat this when I'm an only child, so I'm very good being alone.
Me too. Oh, you are too. Yeah.
I'm good being alone. And fortunately, I have a husband that understands that. I'm like, I don't want to, I'm not mad. I just need to go in the room and sit in my chair, my very nice, comfy chair with a blanket and a book.
Absolutely.
And maybe a glass of wine. And just, give me 2 hours to do whatever I need to do.
Yeah.
That's if I can get that, I'm good.
That's good.
Yeah. My wife is a twin, and they're both, she and her brother both are very high energy. Like they wake up with 1,000 questions, and so she doesn't understand that. She lets me have that time like that, and I'll take a good book too and go sit in the corner somewhere.
Yeah.
But she wants to be going somewhere doing something, and she wants me to go with her. And we do fine, but it's like
it's a balance.
Come on, like I just answered 400 emails today, and 14 Zoom calls. I need 5 minutes to stare at this wall.
100%. Just let me sit. Let me sit and stare for a minute. I'll be fine. I promise. But and it's such a people. Mine is not as much.
Yeah.
Because I work, all over, and when I go to my office, sometimes I never see a human. If I, but like after a conference, I'm.
You dead for a couple of days.
I'm peopled out.
Yeah.
I love them, and they're my people. And I love time with them, but I just like.
Yeah. I get that. Conferences they do take a lot out of you, because constantly, firing on all cylinders. So I get it. Yeah.
We're gearing up in 2 weeks for our full team to go down to Fairhope for a team building, but just strategy, because we just added some folks, and it's the first time that all of us have been together. And I can imagine what that's going to be like.
Yeah.
A very similar thing. Yeah. But it's a good time. And I saw that at the Chamber of Spring Conference. It was very busy, and folks were coming and going. And you guys used GroupMe, I believe it was, to communicate off channel. And that I saw a lot of communication, and that was just pretty neat, just smoothing those things over. What's the next big thing for chambers, you think, in the state, or maybe in the different rural, mixed, or metro areas? What's the next big thing coming that chambers need to tackle?
That they need to tackle?
Yeah, like what's the next big thing on y'all's horizon?
I don't think it's any different than our communities or state. Chambers are a reflection of the communities they serve. And so those conversations are revolving around, and I'm not playing to the audience here, but it really is around workforce, barriers to workforce or barriers to people working, and kind of what that looks like holistically. The great thing that I'm hearing and have been hearing, for a couple of years now is we've got to approach it from the employer side and the employee side. Mm-hmm. And we have to get very granular on the employee side because everybody's story is different. Mm-hmm. But it's all of those barriers. What are we doing about housing? What are we doing about transportation? What are we doing about childcare? What are we doing about even the social services side? My previous life, we worked very, very, very closely with our school system. And, while traditionally we're focused on test scores and, attendance and truancy and aptitude. And finally, one of my dear friends, that's a longtime educator, said, none of that matters if they don't have a pencil. Mm-hmm. None of that matters if they can't get to school. None of that matters if they don't have clean clothes and their bellies are empty. So kind of realizing that we have to just look at all of it. Mm-hmm. And I think that conversation is taking place around a chamber board table as much as it is, hopefully, every other table in community leadership.
Absolutely.
I don't know if that's what the answer you were looking for, but
yeah, I know there's no way to have one single purpose that every chamber's working on, and I kind of thought that might be your answer because they are that nexus of all the things in the community. It's just I wanted to hear you say that, and when my mom and our spouses watch the show, I think that's all that really watch it, but
don't
kidding.
Say that.
I'm kidding. No, but when they go out and they see it, well, what does Paige Hutto think we should be doing as chambers? You've told them, I know you have, but okay, well, she said here on a main stage, it's meeting those basic needs and whatever it takes to get all those players to the table to meet those. Is it Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Mm-hmm.
Old education talk where you got to have I got to feel safe.
Yes.
At first. So that's interesting. And I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
And when I do board trainings, and Houston, I may have even used this example when I did the board training where you and I met, I use the kind of analogy of King Arthur's round table. Mm-hmm. King Arthur had the round table so that all of the knights would be an equal, voice. No head of the table, all of that. And so that's kind of my analogy for a local chamber, because it is the table at which education, local government, healthcare, social services, faith-based communities, business community, industry, where everybody can come and sit in a truly collaborative way. It's kind of that, like you said, it's that nexus of all of those entities. Mm-hmm. And that's probably the most important, most critical thing that a chamber has to hold on to and use. That's the power of what we do, I think.
That was an awesome answer. It was an awesome answer. I don't know that I've ever really thought about it in that way before. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that answer.
Well, that we should get a round table.
We should.
Do we have a round table?
We do not have a round table.
That's gonna be the thing we take from you, Paige.
Yes.
Get a round table.
We need
somewhere.
a round table. No heads at the table, just a round table.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's beautiful. That's very true. Especially
there's the whole psychology of organizational, psychology of where people sit in a room and all of that, and just a round table takes a lot of that away.
Yeah. We were in a meeting not too long ago, and it was, we were invited, and so there was a hierarchy to where people sit and who sits where, and trying to be sure it's almost like, walking into church. Oh, so-and-so family always sits here, and so-and-so's family always sits here. So, walking into that setting, that environment, we were very aware, that there may be that kind of established protocol, of sorts.
Hierarchy.
And so the round table, I would assume, would kind of eliminate a little bit of that, maybe. I don't know. That's a cool perspective. Before and I know you've probably got several questions, Houston. I want to know. I don't want to get off the podcast without finding out about ESPN.
Yeah.
I want to know about your job,
fishing job,
fishing job with ESPN.
So, growing up in Eufaula, it's Lake.
Yeah.
And not my very first job, but kind of my first adult job when I was in high school, was at Humminbird Electronics. They make depth finders, fish finders, now owned by Johnson Controls. But so, and then I worked for Mann's Bait Company, Tom Mann, inventor of the plastic worm. So it's just always kind of been in my blood, being around the fishing industry, and then going to work for the chamber. One of the things, I was the tourism director, and so one of the things that we obviously promoted was the lake and bringing bass tournaments to town, and all of that kind of just came to, brought me to, and then one of my college roommates worked for Bass Angler Sportsman Society.
Yeah.
Started here in Montgomery, of course, by Ray Scott. And it was owned at the time by ESPN.
I got you.
And the company was. And anyway, long story short, they were in Eufaula doing a tournament, and I was joking around one day and said, "Hey, I'd love to come work for you guys one day because it's so glamorous to travel all over the country." Fast forward a few months, and I was interviewing in Montgomery and moving to Montgomery. So, and then they moved the company to Orlando. And so there was about 5 years there where I was on the road.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
1 year, I traveled 26 out of 52 weeks.
Goodness.
So it wasn't so glamorous. Fun. Did you think it was so glamorous at the end of those 26 weeks? No, it was tough.
No, because I can tell you, it's not 100% accurate, but a lot of lakes and fishing tournaments, they're in out of the way places, and
I'm sure
you're not staying at the Ritz, So, I knew it was time to come off the road when I think I was in Louisiana, and I kind of forgot where I was, not forgot where I was, but it was just like, I'm not even sure what hotel I'm in tonight, because I'd been in 3 already that week. So I was like, maybe time to do something else.
Absolutely.
Well, we're glad that you are where you are now. Kayla sings your praises, Kayla Dozier. And
she's awesome.
Isn't she?
Yeah, well,
we adore her.
Yeah, she's phenomenal too. Our whole team is, and we consider you an extension of our team. Every time we meet new people and bring them in and go help them, and they help us and work together. So we are almost out of time, Paige. It's been fun catching up. What are your final thoughts for all things Alabama Chamber?
I want to thank you guys just for the partnership, and that's really what we consider it, because you're at the table. You're at that, the Community College System and Innovation Center, and what you guys are doing, particularly with Skills for Success, is just critical. It's part of that granular. We got to get down to the heart of it, and not talk general. Oh, we have XYZ problem. Okay, you got to get to the heart of it. Got to get to the root of it. And I think you guys are certainly doing that. And our chambers across the state are there to help and to make that connection. And I would just say, if, shame on our chambers, and they know, that I mean that with all the love that I have, if they're not talking to their K-12 system, their community college, their, university, whatever, because it's just critical. And if I can help in any way make those connections, if one of your community college folks or even businesses don't know who their local chamber is, give me a call. I'm happy to connect. Again, that's a huge part of what we do. And then, I'm just looking forward to what's to come, because I think we're all just with working for Alabama package, bill being signed yesterday by the governor, perfect timing.
Yeah.
I think we're in a new era of what's to come. And I think it's good.
Well, I think we would probably say the same thing. I mean, you're out there and hear an awful lot. So anything that we can ever do to support you or, your membership, you hear a need, give us a call, because we absolutely love to play problem solver a lot. And, we may not have all the answers, but it's fun to try.
That's right. Yeah, it goes back to that whole surround yourself with smarter people. I don't have to know the answer. I just have to know who does.
That's right.
So
that's the story of my life.
You're surrounded by women. You know that, right?
So they're inherently smarter, right?
There you go.
Okay. Hey, well, thanks for being here, Paige. It's been a pleasure. We've got some ideas to plug you into different PD events later throughout the year with our team and some of the college teams and divisions. So we appreciate your time, and I hope the rest of your day and your weekend is fantastic.
Yeah, you guys too. Have a great day.
Okay.
Thank you.
Close us out, Brandi.
All right. Well, everybody, thanks for joining us for another episode of Innovation Unplugged. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow on all platforms.